You know, I don't usually say this to all the girls, but you, well, you are something special. Oh, yes, yes, I am quite funny and charming. You want me to do what? Oh, no, 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 no. I'm open to things. It's just. Okay, no, no, please. I'm sorry. I displeased you. Stop me, slow down. Welcome to Fixing Yu-Gi-Oh, where we fix the problems of Yu-Gi-Oh and make cringy intros. I am your host Prunk, and today we are tackling Magician's Force. This set introduced to us some pretty big powerhouses such as Tribe Infecting Virus, Breaker the Magical Warrior, and uh, that's basically it. Okay, well, Sims everywhere jump on the DMG bandwagon, and honestly, I'll joke about it, but I never had that anime crush. In fact, I'd probably say she's probably like the least attractive character in the anime. Hold on, calm down, nerds. Look, you can try and convince me in the comment. It's good for the algorithm, anyways. But we say my opinions are always right, and personally, the sexiest card is obviously Neo. Those eyes, man, they're just so blue. Okay, well, my fiance is giving me a dirty look. I need to talk to somebody about this now. Who let the dogs out? Look, Dark Magician Girl just never really saw competitive play. And that's because, well, she's a support card for Dark Magician, and, well, he saw zero competitive play. And honestly, he could barely be played casually as well. The spell counter stuff in this set makes it pretty good, but we're going to need to do a few things to buff them, so hopefully Dark Magician can get some kind of real support. The real deck that needs fixing is the XYZ Union things that attempted to be this, but just never really got a chance to take off. 777, the equip card, does need a big buff because it's a machine card that's just objectively worse than Acts of Despair. Machines just haven't gotten any real support yet that just couldn't be overridden by a generic card. Also, we need to check up on these Amazonas. It's the first big female archetype, and they were a huge miss. They have an average stat line, but not much else to really go off. And if it's tribe mentality, then we're going for, then they kind of just missed the mark. But they don't really have much of a swarm mechanic in order to get each other going and really riling up the Amazons. Finally, there's Huge Revolution, a deck that is about people rising up, killing your opponent by nuking their hands and field. It's a great troll deck, um, but they also can miss the mark quite a bit. Funny enough, I have actually won duels with them as they stand, though. So, as we are going to fix a few things, this is probably going to be a little bit longer episode to, one, offset the really short one that we did last week, but two, this set actually has a lot of stuff to really talk about and a lot of archetypes we can really focus on. So, sit up tight, guys, but before we even get into fixing some stuff, we need to save some things from the ban list. I am bringing back the Saviors. Alright, so there are two cards in this set that really help set up FTKs. So we're going to attempt to try and save them from the ban list. Magical Scientist and Royal Magical Library. Now, Royal Magical Library has not been on the ban list to my knowledge, but it does often attribute itself to helping get cards onto the ban list because of its own effect. Basically, it just says that each time a spell card is activated, place a counter on the card. Once you have 3, remove 3, draw a card. Pretty strong. But here's the fix for it, because honestly, there's a way we can keep the integrity of this card without abusing it. Now, we are going to remove that max 3 clause from this point. Just because we'll see where you're going with it, but the max 3 is removed from here. Now we're going to say, during the end phase, you can remove 3 spell counters from this card, draw 1 card. And so what does this do now? Right off the bat, we are no longer limited by those 3 counters, which didn't make much sense anyways, because you were always activating on the 3rd turn anyways. The only reason you would really want that 3 max is because if your opponent plays multiple spells, then you're getting advantage. But if they are playing multiple spells, chances are this thing's not lasting on the field anyway. But by doing this, now we can no longer massive chain a bunch of spells and draw, just constantly just play spells, draw cards, do shenanigans, draw more spells, draw more cards. That chain kind of ends by setting this up so that way it's now at the end phase. So during the end phase, you can remove 3 spell counters and draw a card. You can do that as many times as you want during the end phase. There's not a limit to that point. So just by banishing out those, you can draw those cards. So if you did play 9 spell cards in 1 turn, then you are drawing 3 cards at that point. it's a little bit more balanced because now you can't play spells to get more cards, to draw more cards, to add more counters, to draw more cards, to play more spells. Does that all sound annoying? Yes, it's because it is. Magical FTKs are just a sin on this game. This problem fixes it because, yeah, you can still do a fun draw 3-4 cards with Magical Library, but now it's at the end of your turn, so you're not directly getting those cards from this. It does kind of ruin some fun combos that aren't broken, but I think this is a necessary fix to help stop FTKs. I went a little off script on that one, so it might sound a little rambly, but whatever. From there, we have to look at Magical Scientist, another famous card for its FTKs, which, again, is pretty easy to fix with the just once per turn, which is fixed by its master rules by itself. And with that, I can imagine this card staying off the ban list for a long time. I think even in like more modern day, like he could probably come out if he was just a hard once per turn. Like I'm trying to think of some good like level 5s and below that you would be able to summon out that you could really abuse it, and I'm sure there are a few. But having this guy as a once per turn, I think is actually fine, even in modern day standards. So if they do that, I think this guy could come off the ban list. I could be horribly wrong. Please tell me how wrong I am in the comments if I am. But that's basically how we can fix Magical Scientist and Library. Alright, so the Magicians. Both skilled, Dark and Light Magicians have great stats and good effects. But there's not really much of a constant way to get their effects resolved unless you're playing like Pitch Black Power Stones, which is slow as it is. The funny thing is, we have a spell that is purely designed to get more spell cards and counters, and it's called Gather Your Mind. Gather Your Mind, as it says, just reads: add one Gather Your Mind from your deck to your hand. The deck is shuffled. Then you can only use one Gather Your Mind per turn. Yeah, I mean it's a 1-for-1 card that does nothing other than deck thin. Because of that, it just never saw play, and it probably will never see play. Like, I don't remember the last time I ever saw a deck play this in that kind of format, and there's just better cards. And it's kind of funny, too, because there's a card called Tune Table of Contents, and it's a spell card that searches its own spell card to search for another one. So you just contents, tune. So like we have those out, and we also then get spell books that basically do the same thing. You can only play that one name, but they're basically all using each other with like secrets and copy secrets. Go for like banish them, play eternity, get the secrets back. Like if you play spell books or you know spell books, then you know what I'm talking about. So it's kind of funny that they so harshly nerfed this card and they kind of realize, okay, maybe it's not that bad. So let's fix this card for more modern day, or I'm sorry, not modern day, but for the current 2003 for Magician's Force. Because honestly, just playing a 37 card deck is not that bad. And if you are playing the Upstarts along with this, and Upstart I believe goes to 1, so in this early stages, I mean, just playing a 34 card consistent deck, like Konami, I think there are worse things that somebody could do in early Yu-Gi-Oh! So let's look at Gather Mind. Add one Gather Your Mind from your deck to your hand. The deck is then shuffled. You can only add one Gather Your Mind per turn. That is the current effect. Let us look at the new one. So mine is just basically make it like a Thunder Dragon. When you activate this card, add up to 2 Gather Your Minds from your deck to your hand. When this card is... Now here's where we get it to make it spell counter focused. So activate this card, gain 2 other Gather Your Minds. Now, when this card is sent from your hand or field to the graveyard, add 1 spell counter to a face-up card on the field that you can place a spell counter on. That's it. Like, you can with that, it allows you to kind of play things like Regeki Break and like just other discard cards, Tribute to the Doomed. It kind of makes those cards a little bit better because you have a fodder to really discard with. It's the same reason you play Thunder Dragon in these early stages, because you can play discard fodder, and it's worst case you would Soul Exchange out and get it, but this is a little bit weaker, but it is more specific. It has its niche. Again, that's all I really care about. Can we make a card playable? Should we make some of these bad cards playable so that way they could have been? What were the big misses? And this is a good card now. Gather Your Mind would actually see some play, and it honestly, I think it can make the Magician stuff a little bit more competitive for that time period. So we don't like hand control is so big, so if people are discarding my hand cards or these Gather Your Minds, it's not that big of a deal anymore for you to kind of do it. So it does kind of directly counter what is the meta in this format. Not only did I get to deck thin, I now have cards that are going to support the counter stuff that's on the field. So I like it a lot, but in order for me to get those cards to have counters, and again, it's only one counter. It's not crazy strong, but I think just the fact that you're able to search them out both out at once, so that way you're not hard drawing into it, is accomplishing the same thing that otherwise there wouldn't really be much of a point to it. Now, I would like to add something that like you can't and like you can if you activate this effect. I don't know if it doesn't have a search target in the deck, can you activate it from your hand? I guess that's kind of a downside, but you would basically use it as discard fodder. Now, what about Dark Magician Girl? She's a 2K beater on her own. That's pretty bad. And she'll get stronger with other Dark Magicians, but most people are only playing one of the Dark Magicians anyways if you're playing a Magician deck at this point. So like that makes her a 2300 attacker like on Tribute Summon at best case scenario. I mean, she's a one tribute monster for 23. That's okay, but that's it. So what's the fix? Honestly, she just needs a full rework, and we're bringing her into with like all the spell counter stuff. So here's my pitch for that. Let's give her like some support to Dark Magician and give her some support for the spell counters. So this card gains 200 attack for each spell counter on the field. Whoa, that can be really good because just 200. I mean, we nerfed the 300 to 200, but having multiple counters, I don't imagine there being more than like 6 counters on the field at once, to be honest with you. And so what? This becomes a 3200 for one tribute. I think if you have that many counters on the field, that's fine. Because you're probably going to use those counters to do other stuff, so that way you can bring her out in the first place. So I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. And just keeping her at a 2000 beater still, I think is fine. But anyway, back to the effect. During your main phase, you contribute this card and remove 3 spell counters from anywhere on the field. If you do, special summon Dark Magician or Magician of Black Chaos from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Which, funny enough, Magician of Black Chaos doesn't even come out into TCG until 2007. The OCG just had it, so they put this clause in, so that way they wanted to make it a little bit more future-proof, which I respect. But it's another crap ritual, so we're going to fix that as well. But look at what we're doing here. We are nerfing the stat boost, but giving it some real synergy for Dark Magician support cards at this time. And now she's actually going to be able to bring out her boyfriend. Or maybe father. I kind of hope father because she just seems so much younger than him. Anyway, these changes, I think I can really support Dark Magician stuff now. And in the early stages, he now has 2 monsters that can actually special summon him, which is necessary because, well, he's just a 2500 tribute, and it's just such a shame that this card, which was so popular in the anime and so like Yugi's ace monster, just never saw any competitive play, at least until Jeff Jones ran this random thing. How the hell do you do these things, Jeff? Fun story, I actually dueled Jeff. I always got my ass kicked. We went to the same locals. But of course, he was one of the only people to actually make the deck work. And, well, now we have some Dark Magician stuff. Now we can look at, like, Dark Paladin. And, like, it's just such a cool card. And honestly, I loved Buster Blader as well. He was such a cool card as well. But nobody's playing dragons as meta. People might play dragons now, and he might be a cool side deck card for that because of it. But, like, Buster Blader was so underwhelming. You basically wanted to play DNA Surgery just so you can come out with Dark Paladin or Buster Blader and OTK your opponent. So here's my pitch for the new Dark Paladin. Can be fusion summoned with Polymerization or by removing 3 spell counters from the field and banishing a Buster Blader and Dark Magician from your graveyard. Okay, so it got a lot easier to like summon. It got a lot easier of a summoning condition, but keep in mind you can only banish the Dark Buster Blader or Dark Magician when they're in your graveyard, which means they have to be put in there somehow other ways. There's plenty of discarding effects that we can definitely use at this point, and there's still a good amount of draw power that's in the deck as well that hasn't been banned at this point as well. So I don't think that's too big of an issue, but it does give you options. That way you could just banish them if they're in the grave. If they were just dead cards and you did use them as tribute fodder, then hey, I flip pitch black card, whatever, and now I'm going to fusion summon from my extra deck this Buster Blader Paladin guy. Oh, and by the way, I'm flipping DNA Surgery. So like, I think that's such a cool shock value of oh crap, like, and I think it's cool. It would have its niche. I definitely can't imagine it being meta, but it's something that you could splash in and have more of a fun deck if you really wanted to get this card out. Because again, he was cool in the anime. Actually, was this card in the anime? I don't know. I'm not going to research it. But either way, he was a really cool card, and I like it a lot. And I want to see him on the field every now and then. So with that, I think Dark Magician could be fixed a little bit, or at least these cards. The only other thing I would really touch is, so we got a better summoning condition, so he could be brought out. You don't have to play Polymerization if you don't want to, which you might still play one Polymerization. Again, we've buffed so many good fusion cards now that you might actually want to splash a Polymerization into your deck. And so this would be my next pitch for his secondary effect. This card gains spell counters for each dragon monster on the field or in the graveyard. Max 3. We don't want to go crazy ham on this because this card's original effect is basically Magic Jammer, where you discard a card to negate a spell. That's really cool, but I don't want to discard cards with this yet. Although with the new Gather Your Mind, it actually isn't that bad because you could actually discard Gather Your Mind, target new Paladin, and gain a spell counter for him, which I think is cool, but it might be a little broken. But anyway, this card gains spell counters for each dragon monster on the field and in the graveyard, max 3. When a spell card is activated, you may remove one spell counter from this card and negate that effect. Damn, dude, you got big, and I love it. I think it's a great effect. I think it is really cool for the card. It keeps its feeling of I am a dragon busting magical sorcering paladin. And I think people would actually be able to play it now versus just I have Dark Magician, I have Buster Blader, I have Polymerization. Bring him out. And oh, by the way, now that I've just gone negative on all my resources, I have to discard a card to try and save him from Fissure. I think this is considered fixed. So we got DMG, who is able to now bring out Dark Magician. And we now have Buster Blader. I kind of wish that we had a Buster Blader girl. So let's make one. Give her the exact same effect. Buster Blader girl. And this card is just basically going to do the exact same thing as the Dark Magician. We had this 2-skill Dark Magicians. Let's have the 2 girls fanboying over their dads because they are their dads. It would be inappropriate. Dark Magician, you're too old. I've seen you age up. I think the rule is half your age plus 7, but I don't really know if that's the same for immortal beings, but I'm going to stick with that age. With all that said, I like Magicians. I don't think they're that bad. I did play them like casually during this format. If I play in my progression series, I try to go for the Magicians because there are some really cool ones with the like flip effects. Magician's Apprentice, I really just wish he was a flip effect monster. So that would be actually my fix to him, where he doesn't have to be destroyed. He just has to be flip face up. I don't think that's breaking the game if we did it that way. There might be a reason why this might have been the point where Konami actually playtested things, but I don't think a Apprentice Magician would be an issue if he was just a straight flip effect monster, because as he stands right now, he has to be destroyed after being flipped up, which is annoying. Uh, but a lot of these other cards I like a lot. I don't really need to touch most of these guys. Even some of these more bad ones, like Magical Marionette, where she just removes 2 spell counters from her card and then targets a monster on the field and destroy it. That's pretty good. It has its niche. Um, Magical Plant Mandragora, that is a weird name. Flip. Place 1 spell counter on each face-up card on the field that you can play spell counters on. Again, hey, spell counters are actually getting really powerful now. I like it. It doesn't need a fix. The only thing I would say is Chaos Command Magician. Negate the effect of a monster card that targets this one card. It's a 2400 one tribute monster, so it's not bad, but my suggestion to this would really just say remove 1 spell counter on the field, negate a card that targets another card. That would be even cooler, so it is more protection. So there's a couple, and it kind of gives you a little bit more of a Dark Paladin vibe in a way. So those are a few things that I would probably touch up, but I don't really feel like if we made these big changes to give like the Dark Magician stuff a little bit more support and give us a reason to play spell counters a little bit more, and we don't have to just go all in on Royal Magical Library, I think some of the spell counter stuff could actually see play, and that's how I'd fix them. Hi, Prunk after editing. So we need to talk about Magician of Black Chaos. This is another really bad ritual monster with no effect. And again, this was a card that saved Yugi's butt in the anime near the finale, and it's just a vanilla. Like, we couldn't do anything cooler with it? No. So I think we can really fix it and give it basically the original effect of Dark Magician of Chaos, just in a ritual form. So, and Dark Magician of Chaos doesn't come out for I think like 2 more years after this card anyways. So I think adding this card into the set as like a really big fetch card I think would have been really cool as well. So when this card is ritual summoned, add a spell from your graveyard to your hand. Period. I don't think it needs the banishing effect that DMOC does have in the future. It's just not really necessary this early on into the game, and just adding a spell from your graveyard on ritual summon is pretty good, and it's got a good stat line. I think that's enough that would people would probably play this, especially in some of those spell focused decks. So I think this is automatically a fix from there. Its stat line is decent, 28 and 26. So I can't really complain about this card if we just give it some kind of spell casting effect. And being able to reuse a spell from your graveyard, I think is totally fine. We should do that. So I honestly thought these guys were a lot worse than what they actually are. Um, and then I actually got to do some playtesting with them, and they're not bad. They all contact fuse, which I actually didn't realize when before I was about to make this script. So they're similar to Gladiator Beast. And machines, I mean, they get the limiter removal itself. So, like, by no means is this deck meta contention, but it's not that bad. The only issue I really have with like these X, Y, Z cards is that they both Y and Z require X to be on the field to unionize. It just hurts the deck that the main monster is just a vanilla that's not searchable other than with like Witch of the Black Forest. And so I don't really think that the boss monsters need that much of a fix. So what's wrong with the deck? Well, it's really just unions as a whole. They're just not worth playing. Equipping them to gain a boost just to help get over problem monsters is okay, but it's only usually like a 400 attack boost in order to really do it. So it's not that great, and it doesn't really push your board state. They provided some extra stats and some decent protection, but it doesn't really push your board state. So the answer comes down to what do we need to do to give some union monsters some support, and that's really where we're going to get into. First off, I do think there are too many unions, and so right off the bat, because there are like 7 union monsters that all require their own union, nobody's playing a consistent deck because not one of these union monsters are actually better than another, and there's no reason that you'd want to play Descendel with Vampire Orcus into your deck or Kiryu. Like, you could possibly get away with Darkblade because he has 2 different uh, like union equips, but for the most part, you're not really touching a lot of these guys. So we just got a series of bad unions that have no real special support, and I'm kind of determined to make them work because honestly, equipped monsters don't really become a thing until Dragoonities, and that's a long, long way. So let's get these guys going and let's give them some support. First thing though is I'm going to delete Second Goblin, Zombie Tiger, and Descendel. We just don't need them. It's not necessary. Dark Blade gets the other dragons. That's okay. But again, we kind of need some support, and so here's my pitch. We need 2 cards that will make unions playable, and unfortunately, those are going to have to be custom made because they just don't ever show up. Konami definitely gave up on unions even being really a thing. They don't give any support like after this set. So right away, we need Rise of the Union. And this card's going to say reveal a union monster in your hand. Add from your deck to your hand a monster listed on that union monster's revealed effect. So what that means is if you are searching for your Dark Blade, you are able to reveal this guy. And now you can actually search out your Dark Blade. So now the union cards just aren't dead in your hand. That's honestly what they need. They need consistency to get their technically a boss monster out on the field so that way they can be equipped, because otherwise a lot of these union cards are just dead draws in your hand. So being able to search the card that they're supposed to unionize with is extremely important, and it's the only way we're going to try and save these. Unions just needed a Rhoda. Basically this saves all those dead draws, so I'm pretty happy with that card. And then next is going to be Together We Rise. Add a union monster and 1 monster listed on its effect from your graveyard to your hand. So now we just got to salvage for those union monsters as well, so that if they do out your union card, you have a second chance to make that comeback. And both of these cards can really help out with both our XYZ machines and the other union cards. It just synergizes with unions all together, and it just makes them more consistent. It doesn't make them auto lose when they do get outed on as their union monster. It makes me want to actually just normal summon Darkblade, equip my union to it, so that way I have this little bit extra of an attack boost, and I have this extra layer of protection for my Darkblade. But overall, it's just a lot more consistent. But these 2 cards are basically a staple requirement in every deck in the future, so this is just how we fix them at this stage. As far as like the X, Y, and Z heads and stuff like that, if I think we just add these cards into this, that deck possibly could have seen meta contention because of limiter removal being so crazy, and contact fusing is awesome. So if you haven't had a chance to play with these guys, I do recommend go to early Yu-Gi-Oh and just try and make a deck format with them because they're not bad. It's just unions as a whole are kind of bad. But if we had a Rhoda search and a salvage search, I think they could have been really good, especially with limiter removal. This card, I feel like, or this entire deck, I feel like could have been really meta contention. Just big unionized monsters searching. It's consistent, and it's more consistent than what we would have gotten with like hand control goats at that time. The boss monsters aren't really anything to be bragging about. Like they're good. They're good enough in my opinion. They don't need to be overpowered. I have not been able to make a XYZ dragon cannon head in my playtesting. I've been able to easily make the like just normal, and then contact fuse them into whatchamacallit, like XY or ZY or whatever their heads are. So it's good. I think that's good enough, and that's how I'm going to fix the unions for now. Just give them a Rhoda, give them a salvage, and I think they can actually see competitive play in these early stages just because of how consistent they can actually be. And I mean, some of these monsters, 2200 attack is nothing to scoff at, especially if that 2200 attack has protection. So I think they're fixed. All right, so Amazonists. Let's talk about them and exactly what their playstyle is in this early theme. But in order to really do that, we should really look at the outlier, and that being the Tiger. Gaining 400 attack for each Amazoness you control. It's not bad, and it does give extra protection for them, but there's nothing really that needs them on the field other than I'm just trying to gain stats. For them, this is kind of where I want to get involved with more of a rework on these guys. They just don't fit any kind of generic theme that I would expect out of a tribe of proud women. First, let's look at Amazoness Archer. This was released a few sets ago. It's not in theme. Tributes to Burn It's Awful. Does not promote like tribe unity. Blow Piper. This lacks any major protection / stats to be a continuous effect on the fighter on the field. Fighter is a card, I guess. Paladin stat boost isn't strong enough, and the only good one here is like Swordswoman being searchable off Rat and with a decent effect. But we need to work these guys. So Amazon Archer, or Amazoness Archer, Amazoness Archers, so there's a trap and there's a monster of these cards. They basically should be the same card for theme. And if you haven't noticed, I like themes. Trap Archer says, when an opponent's monster declares an attack, while you control an Amazoness monster, change all monsters your opponent currently controls to face-up attack position. Flip effects are not activated. They lose 500 attack. They also must attack this turn, if able. This is unplayable, basically. Like, the flip effects are cool, but you're going to be flipping this when they're probably attacking you, and, like, most people aren't setting their monster, or good players aren't setting a monster on the field before they attack. They're usually doing that in main phase 2, which kind of makes this obsolete. So, and then the minus 500 attack boost, we've seen those cards before. That's not that cool, unique, or anything. So this was trying to be like Ceasefire plus negate, specifically for Amazons, or not negate, lower attack value. Just play Rush recklessly. Like it's gonna do the same thing, but give you a better stat boost, and it's a quick play. Like there's no reason for this card right now. So Amazoness Archers, the trap card. While you control an Amazoness, you may target a face-down card on your opponent's field and destroy it. Pretty solid. It's, hey, I am an Amazoness. I am shooting my arrows at these targets that I can't quite see. You're volleying arrows, landing on the opponent's face-downs. You don't really know who you're hitting, but you're hitting something because you're just volleying a bunch of arrows at the enemy. I think that fits the theme very well, and right off the bat, now we're looking at, hey, destruction, like face down destruction as a trap card. That's pretty strong, and I don't think many other archetypes really or no archetypes right now have this. No generic card currently has just pop down a face down trap as a trap card. So really good effect. And then we look at the Archer Amazon monster. While you control another Amazoness, you may target a face up monster on the field and destroy it. So the key thing to these cards is you have to have Amazons on the field in order to trigger their effects. And that is so important because it's going to promote, hey, I want tribe unity, and I need to have field control in order to really take advantage of these effects. So that's the theme I'm going for with these guys. But both these cards just feel like you're snipers sniping out their targets. And you're not just weakening them by plummeting them to full of arrows, you're actively killing them. I'm sorry, destroying them. Plus, we just have enough cards that reduce attack or make you gain attack during the battle phase. It's just not, there's no reason for this unless we give it some kind of extra niche specifically for the Amazonesses. I don't think it's necessary. And the condition again is just keep Amazoness on the field. That's all we need to do. Well, the trap just needs one Amazoness on the field, but basically again, it's two Amazon cards have to play together in order to work, and they're strong effects. But because they're strong effects, there is a condition to it. Now, let's look at Blowpiper. It currently says select one face-up monster on the field your opponent controls during each of your standbys. It loses 500 attack on the until the end of this turn. Like it has, so you normal summon this, and then next turn then that monster is going to reduce 500 attack. This guy has 800 attack. Or your opponent somehow doesn't get over a 1500 attack or defense wall. So now they run into you with a Sangin. Haha, 500 life points. And now during my standby phase, I'm going to reduce your Sangins 1000 by 500 until the end of this turn. Now I can finally beat over that Sangin. Like, this card is useless as it stands. So just make it while you control an Amazoness, all monsters your opponent control lose 500 attack until the end of the turn. Personally, I'd say something like 7 or 800 to kind of balance out that the Amazonesses all do have lower than normal stat lines. This could also justify Paladin's like low 100 attack boost, but like I would look at Paladin. I think 100 is not good enough. If this is supposed to be the deck's main beat stick, okay, she does count as herself, so she's technically 1800, which is just kind of annoying. I would have said each other Amazoness and just made her an 1800 attacker. But that's me. But Paladin, I'm just going to say 200 attack for each other Amazoness you control. This allows her to trade with a Gemini elf if there is another Amazoness on the field. And if there are other Amazonesses, then she's going to get other bonus effects, so that way she could possibly survive or do something else to that Gemini elf to be on the field still. Amazoness Fighter. While you control another Amazoness, you may no longer take battle damage from attacks involving Amazoness monsters. Again, it just reiterates the unity of these cards. Hey, I have two Amazons on the field. My Paladin's gaining 200 extra attack because of Fighter on the field, and now I take no battle damage from attacks involving Amazoness monsters now. So I'm giving all their effects to all Amazons as long as they stay on the field. This is going to encourage me to want to play swarm strategies. There's going to be like a lot of special effect cards. So I want to be able to get these kind of guys because I want multiple Amazons on the field. And if I do start getting that, hey, my field is starting. Like, just imagine I got Paladin on the field, I got Archer, the monster version, on the field, and now I have Blowpiper on the field. So, hey, my Paladin is getting beefy. She's at 2100 for 3 monsters on the field. I am popping a face-up monster on the field each turn if I wanted to, which you probably do. And all your opponent's monsters are lower stats at 500 attack. Like, this is a pretty good strategy. Now it required setup, but again, you set up this strategy. You are swarming the field. I like it. Like it fits the theme, I think, really well. That they just work together to become unstoppable, and that's what Amazons or Amazoness are supposed to be doing. They are a tribe of women that are all about unity. So let's do it. Also, I know I'm a guy screaming about women unity. I checked my privilege. Okay, sorry. Swordswoman. Your opponent. So my fix would just be your opponent takes any damage that you would have taken from battles involving Amazoness monsters. That includes this card. So this was probably the only decent Amazoness in the first place, but even then, it's not that great even still. Like I like this effect now because they are all weaker stat lines. Which also we do want to look at some of the levels because we might want to try and convert some of these Amazoness people to like level 3 or give them like lower stat lines to kind of compensate some of these effects. But overall, now this card is pretty good because now if I am playing lower stat monsters, this card is really going to benefit me where I could just, if I need to, and you have a big Jinzo on the field or something, I could just summon her, crash my Amazoness into the Jinzo and possibly win the game that way. So it's kind of a fun, like, Suicide Birds, like, Gusto kind of idea behind her. But I like it a lot, and I think it fits. And this card actually synergizes really well with Rat because it just special summons off of Rat if you need to, and then you can go in afterwards. So this brings us kind of full circle back to Amazoness Tiger. And it's now a bit better with these changes, but the stat line is still really bad. However, we do have to like have other Amazonesses buffing each other, which this card counts as an Amazoness. So they are either buffing this card, buffing each other, or nerfing your opponent's field. So it's possible that we keep it at 1100, which I don't know why it has such a strong defense. It's 1500. So my pitch for this would just basically be make it a 1500, 800. This card gains 400 attack for each other Amazoness on the field. Your opponent cannot attack any face-up Amazon monsters except this one. So Tiger is still protecting their Amazons. It has one of them on the field. It's a 1900, and again, it's going to contend with Gemini Elf, which is probably in meta contention right now. So like now I have this big Tiger on the field, but to get this effect and get this big beater, I had setup. I had to require setup on this field. I also have the bonus effect of it protecting the other Amazons, which can be really relevant because if my Blowpiper's on the field, while all your monsters are reducing 500, this guy's at 19. That's pretty tough to deal with. So I think Tiger gets a lot better. The only thing I'd prefer is if this card could actually special summon itself, but I think at this early stage of Yu-Gi-Oh, it might be too strong, especially with some of the effects that we've given, because it is basically automatically triggering. This card would basically mean an auto trigger for any one of those Amazon cards. So like I have again, if I have Blowpiper on the field, then I special summon this. It's automatically a like 1,000 attack point swing having these two cards on the field, which is cool. I like it, but it just might be too strong, and I don't want to overcommit on strong Amazon cards so early in the game. We're going to see a lot more support for them in the future, thankfully, because I didn't feel like they got enough support. But they're never in meta contention, so hopefully some of these changes to this tribe mentality is going to be a lot better to actually see them play each other. So I also feel like this could have possibly been a little bit more of like Test Tiger vibe from Gladiator Beast, which is cool. But I'll leave it to you guys in the comments. Do you think this card should be able to special summon itself? If it does special summon itself, maybe we'd get rid of the fact that it protects the other Amazons, or just get rid of the fact that it gains attack points instead. So that way you can always, it's just there to always trigger these Amazoness effects. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Oh, I did forget about Amazon Spellcaster, so let's look at that. Target one Amazon as you control and one face up your opponent controls. Switch the original attack of those targets until the end of the turn. It's pretty bad as it stands because, again, it's just a spell speed 1 card. This easily could have been, if you want to do like attack manipulation compared to like the archers, this card easily can be fixed with a quick play. Like, so many cards, Konami, could have been good or playable for each archetype if you just make them a quick play. And this card's just too slow. Like, you have to play this on your main phase. This could basically be a battle trap, and this is basically a battle trap. So make it a battle trap. And again, it would kind of fit the fact that all the Amazons do have lower stat lines. So making this a quick play, this is my replacement for Rush Recklessly. This is my replacement for like all these other like negate cards because I'm playing Amazon specifically. And this card becomes good at that point, being a quick play. So, like I was saying, all these cards trigger as long as another Amazoness is on the field. And it is a little hard to swarm this early on, but that's why this deck would definitely be a more controlled strategy where you're going to play a lot more traps into your deck to make sure that you have multiple Amazons on the field to really boost their effects. And there are certain cards that will say like, hey, all Amazoness do this effect, but overall, I think we fixed them. And until we get like Amazoness Village, where you are allowed to like special summon from them from the deck, although this is going to need a little bit of a fix as well. Unless we really commit to changing some of the levels of these cards right now, I don't think Amazoness Village is playable. So if we get enough, again, I've told you guys in the past, I really want to fix like whole archetypes. So if I do get enough subscribers and people are really interested in hearing full on Amazoness pitch for the entire archetype, please let me know. I can take a look at everything is my goal and how to do those. So eventually I'm going to get into full archetypes, but Amazoness Village at the moment I don't think would be very good. So we are going to fix it eventually when it comes out just to kind of give them some support. So we talked about just playing a lot of traps, and you are going to want to play cards like My Body's a Shield that came out in this set to really help protect all these Amazoness. You would probably have to play 3. You're going to probably play like Wabokus and just other cards to really make sure they stay on field. Probably more stall, like Messenger of Peace or Swords of Revealing Light are going in your deck. So you want that control strategy so that way you control the field. And with all of that, I think that could actually make Amazoness really competitive. And we finally got a good, solid like warrior support with like reinforcement of the army. It searches literally all of them except Tiger. So we finally get a Earth solid deck. You're probably playing Gaia Power in this too, just to kind of get that. And but coincidentally, that card's kind of in theme as well. So I think we have a solid Earth contender to kind of beat the dark light meta that Yu-Gi-Oh had in its early days. So overall, I'd say that Amazonas are fixed, and with these changes, I feel like they could actually be competitive. Well, guys, I think this wraps up this week. I feel really good about all these changes. I'd be really interested to see these decks in action, especially the Amazonas. Um, I played a pretty heavy focus on like Earth Warriors and Gaia Power growing up, so I think this could really be competitive because my deck was pretty solid for being a kid with no expendable income and just putting together what I could. And I actually did pretty well. But again, thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe. Do the YouTube stuff. It really really boosts my self-esteem. So that's important, right? You guys want to support me. But thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Peace out.